Hello everyone and welcome to my review for Ayashimon chapters 3 through 5. I actually planned on doing a review last week for chapter 4, but just never got around to it. And I didn't think chapter 3 had enough stuff to talk about on its own, but if I'm going to be talking about multiple chapters, I might as well go over a few of the more important things that happen in chapter 3. So this is probably what I'm going to do for Ayashimon. Either if we get a chapter and there's just like basically nothing to talk about, I won't even do a video on it. But for the most part, what I'll probably do is either I'll wait and do a review on like a few chapters, or if we get like one chapter that comes out that's really big, like really important, like the most recent chapter, then I'll do a review just on that. And I think Mondays are going to be the days for Ayashimon reviews, since I seem to have gone back to doing Jujutsu reviews on Sundays. So yeah, I guess we're going to be doing Ayashimon Mondays now. That's fun. So chapter 3, the chapter that I have, I think, the least to talk about, Mauro and Urara go to the city. They go to Kabukicho, which seems to be sort of shady, dirtier part of town where a lot of illegal shit happens. It's where you've got all the gambling and prostitution and stuff. And of course, as you can imagine, a place like this is just running amok with Yakuza and Ayashimon. And as you would imagine, Mauro being kind of the country boy that he is absolutely amazed by all of the cool shit that they have here in Kabukicho, because he's never seen shit like this before. And they have some shit here that I've never seen before. We get a few examples of Ayashimon doing their thing, such as one dude eating a person, and this is fucking insane. I remember when this chapter came out a few weeks ago, this was the one takeaway everyone had from the chapter is, this dude fucked a guy's balls. This tanuki or whatever, his testicles transformed into a woman that a dude fucked. Oh no. The Tanusi is strong here. I recall that phrase being used before for a different character in a different series. Though it's like an actual woman as opposed to a guy's testicles shape-shifting into a... Jesus fucking Christ. Terrible things happen in Kabukicho. Just terrible. I can't believe that the Shonen Jump editors let him put this in the fucking manga. I can't believe... Like, his fucking nuts are hairy. They're hairy balls. You can tell he trims, or he like trims his ball hair because it's like fucking short and oh god. I still can't believe that they let this in. I can't believe it. So anyway, we go off. We're looking for a place to set up shop. And we're gonna start off by finding some loser to trail back to their office. And we find this kind of wimpy little kid getting beat up on by a guy who looks like Shion from Hell's Paradise, but instead of being blind with white hair, he's got black hair and tattoos that look really fucking cool. And this guy is an Inokuma Nyudo, which is a big fire demon. Well, he's not big, but you know, a fire demon, which is always cool. This guy actually has a really badass design, which makes me a little sad that he got obliterated by the end of this chapter. It would have been cool to have this guy stick around. However, you know, it's Kakuyuji. We seem to introduce cool new character designs pretty regularly, so I'm sure we'll get another cool guy relatively soon. But this leads directly into the important stuff that we learn in Chapter 4. But before I get into that, I'd love to give a shout out to my wonderful patrons. Special thanks to Fuse, Neo, Dijon Redden, Anthony Chavez, Honey Mustard, Zach Rowitz, K-God, Chris Redfield, Scratch23, Rat, Ryzen 4K, Artist, Mac Campaign, Wave of Manga, Chuck's Feed and Seed, Jakester Easy, and Play Free Labs. Thank you all very much for supporting me on Patreon. I greatly appreciate it. And if you too want to get a shout out at some point during videos, or access to reviews for solo leveling and the Boxer, you can always become a patron as well. There's a link to my Patreon down in the description. With that out of the way, let's get on to Chapter 4. So the first interesting thing we learn is that Ayashimon's physical forms are made of money. When humans imbue money with emotion like charity or greed, we can use it as a vessel. That means destroying our physical bodies doesn't destroy us, our spirit remains. But without that physical form, there's little we can do, and it'll be 99 years before we can manifest a new one. So this is a very interesting and unique concept for demons, I guess. It's not unusual for demons to be basically immortal creatures that come back a while after defeating them because they're not purely physical creatures. However, using money as a vessel to manifest themselves in physical forms is very unique, and I like that quite a bit, because money is kind of the thing that makes the world go round, and as some would say, money is the root of all evil. So the idea that, generally evil demons use money to manifest into human forms and then do evil shit is actually a really good idea that I like quite a bit. It's pretty cool. Now, we learn the little guy here is named Ten, and he's just kind of like a scrub. Just a minor yokai. He's just someone that kind of gets walked over and absorbed into other gangs. And I quite like him. He's a nice little guy. He's a cute little dude. I imagine him as being kind of the completion for the main trinity of characters. I don't know why. It's probably because we got introduced to him in like the 3rd chapter or whatever. So he just kind of works. And he definitely seems like someone who will be kind of... what's a good comparison for him? He's a character that's kind of a bitch. He's kind of low tier. But is going to have some kind of big developments where he becomes brave, where he stops being a little bitch. And we kind of get some development towards that at the end of this chapter, where he finally brings himself to cheer for Maruo during their ritual duel. Because they go back to Ten's office, they meet with his boss, who's a pretty cool-looking guy, and Urara challenges them to a ritual duel as she reveals she's got the Yakuza tattoos on her back, and this is a very, very cool panel. Looks great. I wanted to use it for the thumbnail when I planned on doing a review last week, and I think I'm still going to include it here. So we get a little bit of info on how the ritual duels work. The sound of the Suzumi hand drums make a barrier. Their masks reveal their true power. Each side speaks the sacred words and then tests their strength. Any agreements made under the sacred words will be upheld no matter what. The loser must obey the winner. So this is essentially how they settle disputes between different Ayashimon groups. It's kind of like a business transaction or a Kengan match, where two dudes fight as representatives of their bosses, or, the boss themselves can fight, as we see with the leader of the gang that Ten is in. And whatever sort of agreement they make ahead of time, whatever sort of stakes they make, you are completely required to obey those agreements. So the yokai that Maruo is battling against today is the Amamahagi. Amamahagi, that's how it is. Amamahagi. And he's kind of neat, I guess. He basically just has like a cool cube for a head. but I like the texture on it, and I like the designs on his jacket. So he's cool. He's pretty all right. So the two of them fight. They're kind of, well, actually for the most part, Cubehead is kind of kicking the shit out of Maruo. And by kicking the shit out of him, I mean he keeps smacking him around, and Maruo's not really hitting him. And by the end of the chapter, Ten finally works up the courage to cheer for Maruo, as Maruo finally lands a big hit against Cubehead. So now, on to chapter 5. Not long into this chapter, we have Maruo defeating Cubehead by smashing a giant hole into the floor, which is not good because they planned on using this place as an office, and now they have a giant hole in one of the office floors, so not great. However, Maruo is confused as to why the gang members are all cheering for him after he just killed their boss, and Urara explains that yokai don't really give a shit about anything. They're whimsical, lazy, and irresponsible. They have no sense of morality. So as long as they're having fun, even living or dying doesn't mean much. So I guess that makes sense. I mean, when you're straight up immortal, like you come back a while after being killed, doesn't really matter, you probably wouldn't give much of a shit about being killed or your friends being killed, because they're gonna show up later anyway. And considering a lot of these guys have probably been around for like thousands of years, 99 years is probably waiting like a week or something for them. So, you know how it is. Older you get, the faster time seems to go by. Only makes sense because the amount of time becomes a smaller fraction of the time that you're around. So, Urara is looking at Maruo, and she's like, this dude's not normal. This is not a normal human being. We're finally getting some kind of explanation as to why Maruo is so strong. Because the whole Saitama training regimen doesn't make any sense. I mean, even like in One Punch Man, the training regimen doesn't really make sense. He says what his training regimen is, and everyone's like, no, seriously, what did you do to get this powerful? Urara concludes that Maruo is probably a Marebito, which is basically just kind of a superhuman. A strong man or a born yokai slayer. And you only get one every few generations, like Sakata Kintoki and a couple other ones that I don't recognize. The only one I recognize is Sakata Kintoki. I had never heard of the guy before, but I know he's on the roster for Record of Ragnarok. So cool little overlap between series there, I guess. So this dude here is a born yokai slayer. Forget these random bozos that we're having fights with as we, find our place in the reorganizing Ayashimon society. This guy could have actual fights with executives of a major syndicate. So we need to finish up dealing with all these fodder guys around here. Maruo is someone that can deal with the people I want to get rid of. So Urara goes, she finds all of the files for this gang because they're obviously, scammers, so they're bound to have lots of information. They find out about Doppo Akari, who's the current head of the Enma Syndicate. She comes up with a little bit of planning to try and, get inside so that Maruo can have duels against these dudes. And then she'll be able to get back the family crest and avenge her father. Then she sees that everyone is frozen, as if they're frozen in time or something. Now this is really bad. What caused this? It would happen to be this guy standing on the ceiling right now, defying gravity. And he seems to speak with some kind of accent. He says, hello. I'm wondering what type of accent this is, because that seems like the only one that's pronounced that way. And this guy is from the Cabinet Office's Public Safety Police Force, the Onmyo Bureau. Now, when I saw Onmyo, I'm like, hey, I've heard that word before. I'm vaguely familiar with some parts of Japanese history or I don't know how real it is. I think I did a little bit of research. Onmyo is as far as I can tell, the Onmyo were basically spiritualists that work for the government. You know, way back when, in like feudal and medieval Japan, the Onmyo were the part of the governments that were managing the spiritual, mystical stuff. So, I remember people were worried that this series was going to be like another Demon Slayer or something. It's like, we're tired of just having people to go around hunting demons in our Shonen Jump series. And of course, so far it seems like Ayashimon's turning into something different, because they're not really like, oh god, we need to stalk the night and hunt yokai in order to protect the populace. No, we're just fighting them. We're in the world of yokai. We're going around fighting them. The Onmyo are the guys who would be the protagonist if this was just another Demon Slayer, Jujutsu, or Chainsaw Man. So these guys are the ones around who are supposed to keep the Ayashimon in check. And this guy seems to have some kind of gravity powers, and he's kind of walking all over Urara. So it would seem that these guys are pretty strong. They're pretty powerful. We have this other agent come up, this lady. She looks pretty cool as well. They have this creature here with seals on it. It seems to be called Kagehito. And as far as I can tell, it seems like they are summoning basically Shikigami. They call it a Shiki. So they're using like spirit summons. They're summoning servant yokai to help them in their mission. And the lady decides, let's let this one go. Because we don't need to really deal with them. Like, it's whatever, they're not a big deal right now. Instead, how about we leak information about them to the Enma Syndicate, and we could have two problems deal with each other themselves, and we don't have to do shit. Doesn't that sound like a great idea? So it seems like these guys are getting set up as kind of a villain group. We already established a few already in Chapter 2, a few potential groups within, you know, the crime syndicates. But now we basically have the ghost police, the servants of the government, who will potentially be a thorn on our side as well. But as sort of the lawful group, I imagine we will have situations in which, you know, Maruro and Urara will work together with some of the Onmyo. So that should be cool. And, well, that's the end of Chapter 5. So definitely a lot of very interesting stuff set up within these chapters. We've established kind of what the ritual duel is. We've introduced a few interesting characters. We've introduced how the Ayashimon kind of work in terms of kind of their physiology, in that they're made of money. And we've introduced a new villain group, and also a potential explanation for why Maruro is so powerful. And, you know, presumably there are going to be other people that recognize Maruro's power as well, and they're going to want to get their hands on him. Maybe because the Onmyo don't seem to recognize anything particularly notable about Maruro. If they find out that he is one of these superhumans, then they are probably going to want to get their hands all over him. So I imagine that could develop into something later on as well. But yeah, with that is all I have to say about the last few chapters of Ayashimon. All very interesting. We'll see if Chapter 6 will be interesting enough to talk about on its own, or if we're going to get another multi-chapter review in a few weeks. If you're interested in finding out, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and click that notification bell so you don't miss any of my uploads. We are only 81 subscribers away from reaching our subscriber goal for 2021, hitting 4,000 by the end of the year. So if you haven't already, definitely be sure to hit that subscribe button. If you enjoy discussing Ayashimon with other people, or you just enjoy the content I produce on this channel, you should definitely check out my Discord server. I have a link to that down in the description. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys around. Take care.